is it in your jurisdiction under the FCC to put that ahead of the interest of diversity and localism and to deal with the problem of concentration?
I'm not putting that ahead. I think we have to put it in balance, and we have to take all of those things into.
Then why would you not take a few extra days, which is the will of the Congress and the will on a bipartisan basis?
I think it's important for us to try to move forward on all of these issues, both including what's involved in increasing the opportunities for minority ownership, and what's involved for responding to the concerns that have been raised on localism, and responding to the courts and the Commission's previous decision that said the absolute ban on cross-broadcast newspaper cross-ownership is no longer appropriate. And that reason.
Yeah, but that court, that's the Philadelphia decision you're referring to?
Yes.
All right. Well, it's my understanding that parties on both sides believe you're in violation of the Administrative Act as a consequence of not doing away entirely with it as a consequence of that decision. So, I mean, you just seem to be digging a hole deeper and deeper here rather than trying to work this through in a logical way.
You're right. The industry is saying that we're in violation of the law
Administrative Procedures Act
for not removing the ban in its entirety and allowing for newspapers to buy any broadcast property in any market around the country. But they're saying they're saying the Third Circuit and the law would require that. I think what we're trying to do is find a balance, as you said, between the concerns about how do we respond to the changing dynamic that's occurred in the marketplace since our rule was put in place, which is what the statute requires us to do that was passed in 1996, and the concerns that have been raised about the impact of this on small markets and minority and women. And I think that's the very reason why I put forth the proposal that I think balances both of those.
Well, unfortunately, most of the advocates on behalf of those entities do not share your view that you are, in fact, advancing their cause. On the contrary, they feel that this is going to disadvantage them significantly. And what's very hard for me to understand is why you would sort of choose to swim against the tide, so to speak, in something as important as what Senator Rockefeller and others have described this as. I mean, this is big stuff. Last time you guys moved sort of on your own like this, there was a spontaneous grassroots revolution across the country, and the Republicans who then ran the Congress joined together with the Democrats, and they overrode what you did. It would seem to me you'd want to try to find something that's just got a little better consensus, a sense of representing America's interests, not some sort of narrow interest. And it disturbs me greatly that you're just sort of so headstrong about this that with even your own commission split. I mean, why not try to get a unanimous commission? Why not try to get a decision?
I actually always work to try to get a unanimous commission, and this issue is no different. And I think that you're absolutely right. It would be great if there would be a consensus. I'm not convinced that on media ownership there ever will be a consensus. Indeed, I've gone to my colleagues in the past, even on the process and the policy issues, all of my colleagues, and said, starting as late as last summer and early fall, saying, let's discuss what would be a unanimous process, what would be a unanimous approach. And actually, I'm not convinced that there's much prospect of that. Indeed, the concerns that have been raised about what they're characterizing as loopholes in the waiver process, I've said to them, then I'm happy to work with them to coordinate what those processes should end up being in any way they would like. But that would mean they would have to engage in the substance, not merely just demand additional process and additional time for the next 6 to 9 months. I think that, and I'm happy to end up doing that. However, I'm not yet convinced that we will ever reach a consensus on media ownership issue. I think it may be just too politically divisive. And I do think it's important that we have an obligation to respond, as Congress told us to, and the courts are waiting for more than 3 years now, and I think that's what we should do.
Well, I've used more than my fair share of time here, and I apologize for that. But I think you are inviting another congressional response. And I regret enormously that, I mean, I don't know, Commissioners Adelstein and Copps, do you want to respond to what the possibilities are here?
It should be about substance, and where I have been on this has been no secret, I think, to the chairman or any of my other colleagues on the commission for months and months and months. And we are willing to vote on media ownership when we deal with these long pending problems of minority ownership and the lack of localism, because they have caused a lot of the problems of consolidation. So I think it's not just about process or division of process or inability to get an agreement there. This goes to the substance of the matter. Incidentally, I would add, if I could just make a quick comment, because there's been a lot of argument to the contrary about the health of the newspaper industry. We are not the Federal Newspaper Commission. I understand that. But I would just quote from a letter to the editor that the head of the Newspaper Association of America wrote to the Washington Post last July 2nd and said, the reality is that newspaper companies remain solidly profitable and significant generators of free cash flow. Operating profit margins seem to be near 20%, which is pretty good. I wish I had some investments that were doing 20%. So it's not a one-sided story. Of course, there are challenges and necessities for adjustment, but that's just to balance out what was said earlier. And the final point on divisiveness, I'll tell you one place where this issue is not divisive, and that is across the United States of America. There's a new poll out just within the last couple of weeks that show that 70% of Americans, regardless of political party, regardless of liberal or conservative affiliation, think that media consolidation is a problem. 45%, I think, said it is a really serious problem, and 57% said Congress ought to legislate to prohibit newspaper broadcast agreements in specific markets.
In terms of the process, I think to respond, certainly we have laid out a process today that we could get agreement on, a bipartisan agreement. The committee laid out a process which we endorsed today. So there is a deal that we could reach right now. Now, I'm willing to talk to the chairman about an alternative process as well. He's been very good at building consensus. He's my friend. We have a good working relationship. 95% of what we do is bipartisan, unanimous. So he's done a good job of building unanimous decisions. I don't see why we can't do that again here. I really don't think it's outside the scope of our possibility to work together to try to put aside our differences. But in order to do that, we cannot, I think, operate in defiance of this committee's instruction that we not go forward on December 18th. I think we need to have time to do it right. We need to make sure that we get the elements of localism and the elements of diversity in place first. That's going to take a little bit of time, not maybe every minute that the committee asked for. We could work with you, and I'd like to work with the chairman on trying to see if we can't come up with an accommodation. We work best when we work together, and it's not too late.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I wish you would heed all of these pleas, and I will just say to you, closing, that it is really clear from the evidence that if the Commission intends to promote ownership diversity, you can't accomplish that goal while simultaneously increasing market concentration. It just doesn't. It's just a complete contradiction. And with these analyses that we've requested, outstanding. It just seems extraordinary to me that we're not able to have your agreement to wait a few days. Listen to the American people. Listen to the Congress. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Lawbert.